minutes. And we got plenty to clean up in all three phases of our team. I thought we hurt ourselves too much in this ball game. We beat ourselves more than they beat us. Okay, but the will that we have on this football team is off the charts. The spirit that you guys play with, the toughness that you play with, the determination you play with, okay, we can build on that. We're going to clean the other stuff up.
After a win over the New York Giants last week, the Cowboys have reached the midway point of this 2019 season, taking on the Minnesota Vikings this week. Sunday Night Football. Welcome to Special Edition. Bill Jones along with Nate Newton, Rick Gosselin, and Daryl Johnston. We get to the nitty-gritty of this Cowboys schedule now. The next 4 weeks here in November. 4 games in 18 days, starting with the Vikings on Sunday night. But right now, the Cowboys 4-0 against the NFC East for the first time since 2013. Daryl, let's start with you. Where do you think the Cowboys are here at the halfway point?
Not where they wanted to be, or probably where they expected to be. For me, when you talk about 4-0 in the NFC East, a division that's a little bit down this year from what we expected as the season started. Remember, Washington and the Giants are 3-15. So great, you've got a cushion there in the division, but don't rely on that to be, an indicator of how well you've played this year.
As you saw, the coach said, clean some things up. Those penalties, they're unwarranted. The turnovers, we need to stop that. But you do have a one-game lead over Philly. Play smart and play hard, and you can get there.
Yeah, I'm not sure what team we have right now. Is it the team that lost to the Jets or the team that beat the Eagles the other day? The 5 teams the Cowboys have beaten have a combined 8-26 record. This next 7 weeks, the opponents are 36-22-1. They're going to start playing good teams, and they need to get some good wins.
And they have the NFC Defensive Player of the Week from this past week. Xavier Woods, after coming up with an interception, forcing a fumble, and the Cowboys now have 7 takeaways in their last couple of games, Daryl.
There's that old coaching cliche that when turnovers happen, they come in bunches. So hopefully this is the start of something in the second half of the season. But again, as Rick has always pointed out on the show, it always starts with the pressure up front. And you've got a rookie quarterback, and you can get him off the spot. Have him seeing things that as you disguise coverage and making the mental mistakes, that's a great thing. So they've done a nice job. The great start against Philadelphia. What do they do now moving towards the second part of the year?
The tackling is getting better, so the ball's going to come out. Like Moose said, the front end is doing their job, and it's going to happen.
The Cowboys have 9 takeaways. 5 of them have been against the Giants, and old Eli and a young Daniel Jones. They're going to see better quarterbacks coming up. Takeaways are going to be harder to get. They got to go find a way.
So do you think Xavier Woods can continue his great play going forward?
I watched him in college, and this kid could play. And he's a hustler. He's smart. And sometimes it takes guys a couple of years. But I think this guy is on his way to being a big-time player.
He was drafted as a playmaker. It's time he started making plays. We talked about that last week. He came out and got an interception. If he continues to get takeaways, this defense will be okay.
I think the game last week for me was what I thought we'd see at the beginning of the year, with the defense kind of carrying the offense a little bit as they got on track. So it was a great job, but the key to that, the sacks and the takeaways.
All right, we're just getting started on this edition of Special Edition. When we come back, we hear from Cowboys Chief Operating Officer Stephen Jones.
Special Edition, presented by AT&T, is brought to you by Ford. Visit your local Ford dealer. Ford is the best in Texas. Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Salvation Army, doing the most good. And by AT&T. More for your thing, that's our thing. This segment is brought to you by the Texas Lottery. The Texas Lottery proudly supports Texas education and veterans. Play the Texas Lottery today.
Fast starts have not been something we've seen a lot of this year. We did 2 weeks ago. We saw that against the Eagles. That was the first of these 2 games that really got things going. Do you think this is the best your offense has looked in these past 2 games?
Absolutely. Well, I don't know if it'd be the best. I mean, obviously, we were well-rounded in this last game. We ran the ball well. We threw the ball well. Dak distributed the ball around to the receivers, getting everybody involved. But what I liked about this game is, although we didn't get off to a fast start, we were able to hang in there, do our job, execute, and come back and ultimately win the game and pull away. In our previous 4 wins prior to that, we'd gotten off to fast starts and won those games. And the 3 games we lost, we hadn't gotten off to fast starts and unfortunately weren't able to finish. So the encouraging thing to me, because you're not always going to get off to the fast start, you've got to be able to come back and and execute and win those games if you're going to be a great football team.
We'll have more from Stephen Jones coming up in a bit here on Special Edition, but look at the numbers for this Cowboys offense. They are number 1 in the NFL in total yards. As you look at those numbers, keep in mind also Dak Prescott is number 1 in QB rating through the first 8 games of this season as the Cowboys sit here at 5-3. So, is this last 2 games, the offense has been pretty good. Is this, Daryl, you think the best they've looked so far this year?
No, I like the opener better. And number 1, because you had Zeke was out during the course of training camp. So the Giants knew what they had to do, and that was to shut down Dak Prescott in the receiving game and the receivers in the pass game. So I really felt that Giants game, when they were able to come out and execute and perform, knowing what the Giants wanted to stop and do well, I thought that was their best performance so far.
I like what they've been doing here the last few weeks, but this guy right here, they just showing Blake Jarwin. He has a lot of those big plays. I think he has 2 or 3 of them. I think they should get with him more and be a little bit active in the game with Blake Jarwin.
Yeah, I think last week was the balance you'd see this offense like to strike. I don't want Dak throwing for 300 yards. Usually when the quarterback throw for 300 are losing. I want him in a 250, 260 range. I want Elliott in the 120, 130 range. And in the opener, Daryl, Zeke only had 53 yards. I like the balance. He had run pass, because then if Zeke's running, that frees things up for Dak.
Mm-hmm. And then you look at where Zeke is right now, and he basically is now at midseason form, isn't he?
He really is, and it takes a while to get in. Even if you played a few years, you've got to get used to how things are going during the course of the game, and I think he's starting to hit his stride. He's even admitted this week that he's not playing at the best level. There's a couple of running backs around the NFL that he thinks are playing better than him right now, and that's great motivation for a guy like him.
Especially against Dalvin Cook, who's leading the league in rushing right now. How's that offensive line looking to you?
The last few weeks pretty good. We got to clean up a few things with Tyron, but he's still banged up from the his body's getting a little bit old, so he's banged up, but they're doing okay.
Hey, they got a real test this week against this Vikings defense. We'll have more on that coming up here on Special Edition, and more from Stephen Jones as we turn our attention to this Dallas defense when we come back.
This segment was brought to you by the Texas Lottery. The Texas Lottery proudly supports Texas education and veterans. Play the Texas Lottery today. This segment is brought to you by Ford. Visit your local Ford dealer. Ford is the best in Texas.
We've seen that injuries can come in bunches. We always heard the old adage that turnovers come in bunches. And so flipping to the defensive side, for the last couple of games, you guys are getting a lot of turnovers. What's been the difference there, do you think, that you guys are starting to get the ball more?
Well, this game in particular, I think the pressure really paid off. And to have Michael Bennett in there, turns out he's even better than advertised in terms of playing in Rod's system. It's like he's been in it, which he has to some degree up with the Seahawks. And he stepped right in and created pressure for us. And, when you get that pressure, then those guys back there, guys like Xavier Woods, can make big plays on the ball. And I think if we'll continue to get pressure on these opposing quarterbacks, and these turnovers are going to come our way.
Our thanks to Stephen Jones and talking about this Dallas defense. You look at the takeaways the past couple of games. They finally have come up with some takeaways in each of those 2 games, including 3 last week against the Giants. That needs to continue as we move into the second half of the season. Daryl, what do you think's been the big key as far as upgrading as far as takeaways go?
I think just really staying true to what you're being taught on the practice field and actually transferring that into the game. I think if you go back and look at some of the film during those first 5 games, you'll see that the guys were doing the same thing. They're attacking the football, they're punching it out, there's guys rallying around, tackling points. They're getting guys around the football, but it just wasn't coming out. And now over the last 2 weeks, they've been able to generate some of those turnovers.
With the pressure from the front this past game with Michael Bennett, those guys, Malik Collins, those guys played well. D-Law, they played well. So with that pressure coming from the front, guys have been able to break on the ball, make things happen, get interceptions. Just a rallying point.
Yeah, I think the key is still DeMarcus Lawrence, because when he's on his A game, that ball's bounced loose. He's got the strip sack move down. That ball's on the ground when he's got his A game. We still haven't seen his A game. We've got to see it these next 7 weeks.
Okay, so we saw Michael Bennett one game. I think he had 43 snaps against the Giants. Could you see that immediate impact with that inside rush? And he also used him from the outside in that game.
Without a doubt, and that's one of the things we talked about last week was the flexibility that Michael Bennett brings to that position, to that defensive line. And that's the most snaps he's played this season was last week. The other stops along the way during the course of the year, he hadn't had that many snaps. So, what he's going to do in the classroom and on the practice field, helping the younger guys, and then have the production on game day is awesome.
A sack, 2 tackles for loss, 4 pressures. He came in and did what he's supposed to do. He's going to teach Malik Collins a few things about the outside, and he's a run stopper. He's savvy, and he gets great leverage. He gets up under you and make things happen.
Yeah, Quinn came in fresh and had an immediate impact. Bennett comes in fresh, had an immediate impact. Now it's a matter of sustaining it.
All right, we continue here on Special Edition in just a moment as we take an up-close look at these Minnesota Vikings who come in behind Kirk Cousins with a 6-3 record, having won 4 of their last 5.
This segment was brought to you by Ford. Visit your local Ford dealer. Ford is the best in Texas. This segment is brought to you by AT&T. More for your thing, that's our thing.
Down the near sideline for Drew Pearson. Pearson makes the catch at the 5, touchdown, and the Cowboys score.
Randy Moss breaks a tackle, and Randy Moss races down the sideline, and Randy Moss just outruns everybody into the end zone.
In the end zone, they hit him. Second football. The ball's recovered in the end zone. Touchdown, Cowboys. Runs out, throws it over the middle. Harris at the 1, to the goal line. Touchdown, Dwayne Harris. Romo to Harris. They made it up together.
How about the moments in this series, and Cowboys back in action for another prime time contest against this 6-3 Vikings team. And Chiefs ended Minnesota's 4-game winning streak last week thanks to Harrison Butker's 44-yard field goal as time expired. Minnesota's previous wins over the Giants, Eagles, Lions, and Redskins. Running back Dalvin Cook has bounced back strongly this year after tearing his ACL a season ago. The Florida State product currently leads the league in rushing, 894 yards, 9 touchdowns for him. And finally, the always stingy Vikings defense, led by former Dallas assistant Mike Zimmer, of course, ranks 4th in the NFL for lowest points allowed, 6th in sacks, 6th in interceptions. They come in here trying to get back on track against a Cowboys team, the 7:20 kickoff on Sunday night. As we welcome you back here to Special Edition. Let's talk about this Vikings offense first. They've gotten on track here in the last few weeks behind Kirk Cousins. 11 of his 16 touchdown passes have come in the last 4 games.
Yeah, I think a really good job by Mike Zimmer, because this seemed like it was on the edge of imploding for the Minnesota Vikings. A lot of people unhappy up there on that offensive side of the ball earlier this season, but they've been able to right the ship, and Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen are now happy.
You know what? It all starts with the running back, Dalvin Cook. I want to pronounce his name right because you would see him early and often. They throw to him. He's got 300-something yards coming out of the backfield. He got, like my man said, his 9 touchdowns. He is a beast. It starts and ends with him.
You know, after 4 weeks, Cousins and the offense is really spinning their wheels. He had 3 touchdown passes, 2 interceptions, and the receivers called him out and said, "We got to make plays down the field." Since then, 13 touchdowns, 1 interception. No mistakes, big plays. This is a very explosive passing offense right now.
And Daryl, you had their game against the Packers in week 2, a loss, and 2 weeks later they lost to the Bears 16-6, but they have turned it around since.
Yeah, absolutely. We had them kind of on the cusp heading to that negative part of the season, but as Rick pointed out, the adjustment they made, guys being accountable and just standing up and continuing to grind. So this is the toughest team that Dallas will have played until this point in the season.
And, of course, they didn't have Adam Thielen last week, just 7 plays last week in the loss to the Chiefs. All right, how about Mike Zimmer's defense? You know they are going to be loaded up for the Cowboys this week, but those 2 edge rushers, Danielle Hunter and Everson Griffin, have combined for 13.5 sacks this season, and they are getting to the quarterback, and they always have under Zimmer.
Yeah, try and find a weakness on this defense. You mentioned the edge rushers. They got big bodies inside. They've got good linebackers. They've got a really good secondary, the best secondary that Dallas will have played this year. They've committed to it with a lot of high draft picks back there, but this is a very, very good defense.
You know, they don't give up much. Last week, for the first time, I was excited. I was like, wow, Zim gave up a 91-yard touchdown run. He's preaching gaps, but Anthony Barr is the guy that's going to shut everything down if they can against the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, Zim has built what Rod Marinelli wants. This team has 28 sacks, and 22.5 have come from the defensive line. They want the front four to put pressure and have 7 guys back there looking for the football and the takeaways. That's what Dallas has to get to. You don't want to rely on blitzing to get the quarterback. They need that front four to be as dominant as Minnesota's front four.
And probably not surprising, they've invested heavily in the secondary. There's a ton of first-round draft picks in that secondary. When you've got an old secondary coach like Mike Zimmer, you're probably going to invest in first-round picks in that secondary, right?
Well, they've invested across the board, secondary, up front, so it's going to be tough to run the ball. It's going to be tough to throw the football. So the margin for error this week is huge. I mean, you or minimized. I mean, you cannot make mistakes against this defense. They will make you pay.
Hey, the matchups I'm looking forward to: Tyron Smith versus Everson Griffin on one side, Lyle Collins against Daniil Hunter on the other side.
Yeah, and you know what? We can deal with that if we can stop Big Joseph in the middle. If our guys can keep that pocket solid and let them dance with them bears on the outside, they'll be okay.
Yeah, Xavier Rhodes is an elite cornerback, cover corner. If he matches up against Cooper, that should be a matchup to watch.
Lots of good matchups in this one. Cowboys and Vikings, and we march into 4-down territory when we come back here on Special Edition.
This segment was brought to you by AT&T. More for your thing, that's our thing. Special Edition, presented by AT&T, was brought to you by Ford. Visit your local Ford dealer. Ford is the best in Texas. Miller Lite, the only beer of the Dallas Cowboys. AT&T, more for your thing, that's our thing. And by NFL Game Pass. You'll never miss a game again. Enjoy full access to coaches' films and game replays from Week 1 to the Super Bowl. Subscribe at DallasCowboys.com/Game Pass.
And they're going out there physically just imposing their will on the team. Like, when you hear the other team just getting disappointed with themselves because literally they can't do anything to stop you, I mean, that's takes a toll on them physically and mentally. So, I mean, when they're going out there and just beating up on guys like that, I mean, it's tough for those defenses to play 4 quarters, you know, if you're just going to keep getting hit in the mouth every play.
Zeke is on a roll right now, 3 straight 100-yard rushing games. And final segment here of Cowboys Special Edition, we move into 4-down territory. And on first down, we're talking Zeke. A true or false question here on first down. Will Zeke go for 100 yards against these Minnesota Vikings? Nate, let's start with you. True or false?
True, and he needs to because we can control the ball in time of possession.
I say false. I say if Damian Williams hadn't had a 91-yard run last week, I think Zim put a little extra effort in that run defense this week.
Yeah, one of the things they're going to make sure doesn't happen is they get beat in the running game. I'll go just under. I'll say he's going to be between 95 and 99.
Oh, okay. Very specific there.
False.
False. Nate's the only one that has a true. Okay. All right, second down. How will Dallas handle its 4 games over the next 18 days? So let's go with the 2 former players here. Nate, how difficult is this stretch?
It's going to be very difficult. They got 2 on the road and 2 at home. They're going to have to be real careful and make sure guys come out of these games healthy. If you got a nick, you may want to keep a guy out because this is a hard stretch. 19 days, Moose?
Yeah, and let's not forget about what they just did on a late Monday night game, getting home really early Tuesday morning, and then turning that around to this 4-game stretch. So the big thing for me will be their preparation on the field during the course of the week. How much can they do being smart about the physical condition and making sure the body's ready to go?
Got the Vikings on Sunday night, then at the Lions, at the Patriots, back on Thanksgiving Day against the Buffalo Bills. Third down. Is Jordan Lewis the Cowboys' biggest X factor on defense? Who wants to take that one?
I'll still go with Xavier Woods. I said it last week. I say it this week. He was brought here as a history as a playmaker. I'm not sure they've sold themselves on Jordan Lewis being out there every down yet. I think he should be out there. Woods is out there every down. I think he's got the best shot of making plays.
I love my man Jordan Lewis. That's my boy. But, hey, Michael Bennett is going to be that X factor, promise you.
Yeah, I just think you take that whole rotation. As Rick pointed out earlier, DeMarcus Lawrence hasn't played his best football yet. I think with Robert Quinn and Michael Bennett on the edge, I think the edge becomes important to help the guys in the secondary.
All right, our final 40 seconds here. We got time for one 4th down question. Gut feeling. Who wins, Nate?
By 1. Zim, I'm sorry. I'm turning on you, brother.
If you're a playoff team, you win your home games 24-21 Cowboys.
You have to stop Dalvin Cook. If you can stop Dalvin Cook, you force Kirk Cousins to win the game. I know he's played well, but that's always been a question about Kirk Cousins.
All right, so there you have it. That's special edition for this week. And I'm not sure that I heard a prediction from Moose there.
You haven't heard one all year?
Producer Ben Bullock said, "Impressive Moose." No, we're not going to get a prediction out of Daryl Moose Johnston.
I may have to talk to the Vikings.
We do have a 1-point win from Nate Newton as usual, and we'll see you again next week here on Special Edition.